What's up, family? Back with a brand new video. Today we're gonna go over identity reconstruction. Now, what I want you guys to understand is that going through my psychosis has led to me to a point where I've lost that aspect of myself, that drive, that fire. And so what we have to do when we enter states where we lose identity, we lose our structure, we enter events where we lose that structure we've built through time, we have to begin rebuilding that. And it begins with identity reconstruction. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get into slides, and we're going to have a nice long video about identity reconstruction and starting over, and how we can truly build that character, build back that momentum, and enter that state of congruence with our consciousness, which will lead us to enlightenment, which will lead us to that higher path. Now, what we have to understand is that our identity, the metaphysics of identity itself, is what keeps us in the state of being, and what you're being is going to be reflective of your identity. And so everyone's being something. The worst people in the world go through life and they have negative core beliefs about themselves. They feel negative emotions about themselves. They act out in negative behaviors because of their identity of which they've created for themselves. And so the narrative you play out is going to be directly correlated to the identity you have. And so shifting your identity begins with understanding that you have to overcome the hardwiring of yourself. You have to overcome these lower aspects of yourself. And so it begins with being that version of yourself which thrives off of overcoming. And so to shift your identity, you have to first identify your identity. And so in a world full of people who are totally unconscious and totally oblivious to the fact that they could be doing something more, be that individual to come to the self-realization and the self-recognition, to recognize the flaws within their identity, to recognize the lower aspects within their identity. Guys, we're going to get into a lot today about identity and how we can shift our fundamental identity into a higher state. And so it begins with understanding that your identity is going to correlate to your self-worth. And so if you feel like you're in a low architecture, internal structuring of low self-worth, you always deviate to the vices, which that is what you believe you're worth. When you pick up the vices, what you're doing is reflecting your worth into the world through action. And so what we have to understand is that before you can overcome your current identity, you have to understand and you have to recognize that you are the lower self. You have to recognize the patterns which you release into the world, which are stemming from the lower identities of which you've created. And so what you have to understand is that you may be internalizing your shames and your failures. You may be criticizing yourself more than you have to. And so it begins with identifying the unworthiness rather than blaming the circumstance. It begins with taking accountability for the unworthiness that you feel rather than projecting that out into the world. Because it's very easy to blame someone else, but it's very difficult to realize that the shame you feel, the negative emotions you feel, the guilt you feel is simply a reflective of the state of consciousness of which you inhabit, which is simply a reflection of you at the deepest level. And so what you have to understand is that when you have this shame-coded identity, well, the survival persona is an adaptive mask which you will build to hide and to deviate yourself, to accept approval from the world instead of yourself. And that's very scary because you can be approved of and validated for being the lower self. You can be validated for anything, and validation is a scary thing Because when you begin to validate yourself with negative things, like when you begin to validate yourself with negative substances, when you begin to validate yourself with the drugs, when you begin to validate yourself with being the lower self, now you create a cycle. And this cycle is exactly what you're going to be perpetuating on an infinite cycle if you don't break out of it, if you don't shift that identity. And usually the survival persona is created often at the cost of authenticity. And so you are compromising your authentic self, your realist version of self. You are paying the toll and the debt by repressing what you truly want to express for something without that best version of you. You're paying the toll by being that negative version of self. And so it's very easy to paint a victimhood narrative and to paint yourself and anchor your identity in your past wounds, giving permission to the pain to author your present and your future, to live out that narrative of victimhood. But you have to truly understand that to identity shift, you have to grief, you have to see beyond, you have to actually confront this victimhood narrative. You have to confront the victimhood within yourself. You have to see beyond the veil for yourself, and you have to love yourself enough to accept those aspects of yourself and to integrate that into your higher self by confronting these aspects. And so most people, they avoid the negativity, they avoid the negative situations, they avoid the confrontation because they don't want to sit with that negative emotion that it creates. And so you have to understand that when you create a negative identity, when you're confined within a negative persona, you're going to condition yourself. You're going to have the belief that love, safety, and success are finite. You're going to be fueling your comparison. You're going to be hoarding. You're going to be in a state of fear. You're not going to be in a state of abundance and transcendence. You're not going to be in that state of true growth and harmony within yourself, that prosperity we all seek to extract from life. You're going to be in a state of emotional suppression, disconnected from your feelings. You're going to be using substances, and you're going to be using specific activities to numb yourself. You're going to be reacting to life. And so the lowest thing you can do is be in a state of impulsive behavior. Impulsive behavior is reacting to life without that thinking factor, without that mindful factor. And so it's very abhorrent to yourself and detrimental to yourself to be in that state, because what you're doing is confining yourself within a limited identity, not recognizing the fact that growth and prosperity is abundant to all who seek. And so unconsciously, you may have absorbed scripts from your family or culture or trauma, replayed as personal truth. But the truth is, this is all stemming from the identity of which you've confined yourself within. And to shift that identity, we're about to get into it right now. But starting over, this is going to be called Starting Over Part 1, where we dive deep into the mind and we dive deep into the metaphysics of identity, which will allow us to shift our reality into a higher state of consciousness, which will create that awareness, which will create that energetic feeling of high vibrational luminous energy for us to cultivate and to transcend our current limitations. So let's get into it. What you have to understand is you need to witness your identity. You have to be aware of it. And so most people are unaware to the fact that they're letting themselves go. Most people are unaware to the fact that they're confining themselves in a limited identity because they refuse to confront the limited aspects and how it makes them feel. Because to take accountability for letting yourself go, especially if you've done that for years, It's going to be a lot of grief. It's going to be a lot of negative emotions you haven't been feeling, that you've been numbing and suppressing, which goes into identity loss. But we're going to go into grief. Honor the loss of the old identity. Most people rather protect their lower identity rather than confront and then to reestablish a new identity. Most people rather sit there and protect themselves from the emotion that they should be feeling rather than confront it head on. And so you have to disrupt this unconscious pattern by consciously interrupting it, by choosing a different action even once. Every time you do something, you're creating a cycle. And to overcome these cycles, you have to be able to be aware of them. And then through that, you'll be able to disrupt, and you'll be able to use your mind in a conscious effort to evolve beyond it and to transcend. And you need to reframe and rewrite the story from the source. So most of you guys, you get a narrative from the world and you run with it. Oh, this happened to me, so now I have to feel this way. But the truth is, the power is within the narrative you allow to unfold. Me personally, you guys, you know I love you. You know we've already talked about this. When I went through my psychosis, I said this is the best thing to happen to me in the world. I didn't say that out of arrogance. I said that because I know that now I have the opportunity to grow from a new lens. Even though my total progress I felt was annihilated, even though I felt that the lower self had grabbed me by the foot while I was walking on the path and began dragging me down, I still made the choice to reframe and to understand that, okay, even though this happened to me, this is the best thing to happen to me in the world, because here I now see that I have a new opportunity to grow even higher. Although I may have gone through a psychosis, I may have lost my momentum, I may have lost my progress. Even though I went through something so negative, which was a horrible experience, I still saw the light, and I still saw that I was able to overcome this and to grow beyond it by understanding that you are surviving these negative things. These things are not going to limit you forever. It's the way you view it, and you have to disrupt that pattern, and you have to reframe the narrative, and you have to take control of the narrative, and you have to direct your life instead of being directed. And the moment you detach from that identity and release that pattern, it is something you did, not who you are. That's a good quote. I'm reading it off the screen here. Detach identity from the pattern. It is something you did, not who you are. Most people will identify with the things they do, but it's something you did, and you have to understand it's our first time living. And so it's your first fucking time living on earth. And so for you to sit here and identify with the lower you, to sit here and play these charades like you're going to be confined forever, you have to understand that beyond that, there's something waiting for you. But you have to detach from that structure, and you have to understand that the version of you who's going to let go of the negative patterns is the version of you who is able to have that strength to disrupt and to confront the lower version of you. So it's called the process of letting go, and letting go begins today, now, not when you end this video, but when you fucking listen to my words as I speak. That's when you let go, right now in the present moment. Building the new self. You have to understand that identity is restructured through deliberate practices, not insight alone. You can feel like you're creating the new identity, but you have to actually pick your feet up and begin walking towards the path of reestablishing who you want to be, who you already became. And you need to align with that individual. You need to define your values. You need to anchor your identity in chosen values rather than conditioned reactions. You have to ask, what do I stand for when no one's watching? And this is the most important part, because you have to understand that people will always watch you, but it's not who you are when you're being seen, it's who you are when you're alone. Because in life, you're going to be experiencing yourself more than anyone else. And who wants to sit with a shitty person? Who wants to be by themselves when they're a shit person? Your room is dirty, you're deviating to the substances, you're smoking weed, you need something to escape. Guys, who are you when no one's watching? This is the most important thing. I want you to redefine your values, and I want you to redefine who you are to yourself, because you have to understand that the most important person that watches you is you. You are not who you are when you are with your friends. You are not who you are when you're with your family. You are who you are when you are by yourself in your fucking room. And so to understand that it's about redefining values and stepping up into congruence with your consciousness, understanding that you're watching yourself. You are the observer of reality. It's time to observe creation. It's time to observe a higher reality for yourself. And it begins with the daily steps you take. And it begins with the action you take on a daily fucking sequence. It's that fucking simple. You have to embody the action you seek to manifest. And so when you are creating a new self, when you are creating a new identity, it's about embodying and aligning to that new identity. And your neurological grooves, your neurological sequencing, your fucking brain is going to begin altering. Because you have to understand, in your brain, there's something called a reticular system. And your brain is filtering reality to the narrative you play out. And so if you have such a fucking negative narrative for yourself, well, how the fuck are you going to play out anything beautiful? You have to understand that life is meant to be beautiful. And if you're going to play out the narrative of being a lazy, abhorrent, disgusting creature, well, how the fuck are you going to step the fuck up into a higher alignment? Guys, it begins with the embodied action. It begins with taking that step when no one's watching. And this is the most important thing. Crafting a new narrative. You have to write the story of the person you're becoming. You have to define the qualities. You can even look at people you look up to, and you can allow these people to inspire you. If someone has a specific way of articulating themselves and you feel inspired by that, well, you can craft a new identity which is aligned with that. Most of you guys want to create your personal brands. Most of you guys want to begin the YouTube channel. But the reason you don't start is because you are in a state of an old narrative. You need to break free from that old narrative, and you need to step up into that narrative which is aligned with the best version of you. And you need to curate your environment. Your environment is the most important thing. When I went through my psychosis, I totally lost the environment I was in, which I believe personally was the best environment to be in for my personal brand, for my YouTube channel. We went from 20K to 50K in a couple months just by being in that environment. And so what I want you guys to understand is that the progress is truly going to be, it's going to be times tenfold if you allow yourself to enter an environment with new people, new situations. You can even move to a different fucking city, and you can pack your fucking bag and build that brand in a new fucking state. You guys have to understand that there's levels to this shit. I went to LA with a fucking backpack with nothing but $1,000 and built my brand. You don't understand what it means to curate your environment to your needs. When you put yourself in specific situations, the growth is going to be there. You have to understand that building your new self begins with your environment. The environment is the most important thing. You can't sit here and try to quit your addictions when all you're around is fucking potheads who are going to do nothing or are going to be nothing and are just chilling through time, existing without movement. Now you have to understand, crafting your new identity is going to consist of inner work. You have to do the true internal work. You have to understand that we exist in an external world, but it's reflective of the internal state, hence the reticular system. You have to understand that your brain is going to be wired to your internal narrative, and the narrative you unfold is going to be a reflection of the identity you possess. And so it begins with the shadow work, the pattern interruption, the somatic practices like meditation, the accountability, the identity journaling, and the compassion practice. You guys have to understand that your identity is more than just something that psychologists use to define a person. Your identity, your entire existence is going to be built off your identity. And so understanding that your identity is one of the most important things, and being able to identify yourself, because most people run with the narrative and the identity that society gives them. This is why we have so many people who are stuck in depression, who are lost, who are bored. You have to understand that boredom should be an issue to you. You should be doing something with your life, innovating and renovating the internal space of your mind, going to the gym, quitting the addiction, so on and so forth. You are not who you were. The things in the past do not define you. The only thing that defines you is what you do in the present moment. And if you take that step up and you take that leap of faith into a higher state, well, you're going to be inheriting what comes with that. And so your identity perpetuated is what's going to create the paradigm of your reality. And so it's about understanding that identity reconstruction is a lifelong practice of being aware, of being courageous and compassionate. Each pattern release creates space in your mind. Each intentional choice lays a new foundation. You have to understand that in life you're discovering yourself. I mean, if you want to get into the spirituality of it, I mean, fuck, we're literally the universe embodying ourselves, but we're just fucking humanoids. We've evolved through time, through the quantum and space continuum to be here today. And so you're discovering who you are, and your self is going to be reflective in the world. And so you have to understand that the world you see is much more important than what you think. And so it begins with the identity reconstruction to grow into a better version of yourself. It's that fucking simple, guys. Peace.